Hello everybody and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program, where we have 726.5 science that we need to spend here, and we need to decide how we want to spend it. Now, I wouldn't mind getting very heavy rocketry. We would need to upgrade our R&D if we wanted to do that. How much would that cost? Okay, 1.6 million. So that's not going to be a thing right now. We definitely need to finish the Apollo mission for that, I'm pretty sure. So that's not going to be a thing. 99% certain about that one. The next question is, what do we want to grab for science, right? Now, we already know we could grab a weather analyzer. That's really not going to help us. We already know that we have most of what we need to deposit science on the lunar surface. We could grab the communitron and the Grand Slam passive seismometer. Those are options. This would also give us access to the magnetometer boom. So I think we definitely grab that. That'll get us a decent chunk of science. High-powered electrics gives us access to basically new solar panels and also fuel cells. Okay. I mean, that is what they actually used in this time period. They might have been transitioning to some solar panels at this point. I'm not 100% on that. For the time being, we could certainly grab this to continue to push down this direction towards getting things like... I mean, the MechJeb pod is an interesting one, but specifically we'd be interested in getting things like the atmospheric fluid spectrovariometer would be pretty good. So that would mean advanced exploration into scanning tech, right? Precision engineering into unmanned tech is kind of unnecessary for what we've got going on here. But now it's time for Apollo 13. And it's definitely not unlucky number 13 at all. Nothing could possibly go wrong here, right? So we're going to open up Apollo 12. We're going to load this. And we're going to make a couple of small modifications here. Specifically, we're actually going to bring our cargo here. So what do we want to bring here? We want to bring an experiment control station. We want to bring a GUOB ED monitor. We want to bring a Grand Slam passive seismometer. Then I'm going to duplicate this. We're going to put in another one, actually. I don't want it to be on this side. Well, I don't think it matters. Yeah, I don't think it matters. So we're going to put it in over here then. That seems fine. And inside of that, what are we going to include? If we can get KER out of the way. We're going to include inside of that a photovoltaic panel, a second photovoltaic panel, and we're going to do a communitron. So how much power does this need in total? That's a question we need to figure out. So it requires 1 unit of power, 2 units of power, 3 units of power, 4 units of power. So these would produce 1 unit of power if deployed by an unsuited Kerbal, which these probably will be deployed by an unsuited Kerbal because we need to bring a pilot and we need to bring a scientist. And we only have 2 slots open here, right? So that means that we need at least 2 more photovoltaic panels. So I'm going to duplicate this again, and we're going to put that here. I'm actually going to put in a 4th one over here. Cool. And inside of these cargo storage units, we're going to put in 1, 2, 3 photovoltaic panels. And then inside of this one, what are we going to put in? 3 additional? We really don't need it. We've already got 1 spare. We could put in an EVA experiments kit. In fact, we could put in 4 of these. I forget how we actually use these, but that's certainly something we could do. We could also put in EVA repair kits just in case. Something like that. And then beyond that, a ground anchor. No, we really don't need a ground anchor. We could put in some work lamps here. That's a potentially interesting option. We could include 2 small work lamps like that. Okay. They apparently don't cost power. That's interesting. So this is going to be Apollo 13, and we are going to launch this thing off to the moon. Who are we going to bring? Well, we're going to bring Jeb Bill Bob again, I think. This will be absolutely fine. So we can get rid of these for the moment and put this out on the pad. This is going to be absolutely fine. There's going to be no problems whatsoever. Absolutely not. Nothing went wrong on Apollo 13. So let's get this set up here. I'll stop with the bit. There obviously was something that went wrong with Apollo 13. In transit to the moon, the command module, specifically the command's service module, failed. So they used the lunar module to push the command module back to Earth, in this case Kerbal, in a successful failure, and then re-entered with the command module as normal, and the lunar module burned up in the Earth's atmosphere. So we're going to throttle up, SAS on, and off we go. We are, of course, going to replicate this failure, this successful failure. We didn't replicate Apollo 1, though. That was way worse. way worse. Yikes. Yeah, that was not a good situation at all. So up we go, and what ended up happening here is they did complete their transit out to the moon, but the service module failed partway out to the moon, which of course is non-great. No doubt about that. So they had to recover their flight and return back and completely abort all moon landings and such. Because of that, this should be a one-episode mission. There's no doubt about that one. So we currently are at an apoapsis of about 18 kilometers. So let's bring that up to about 20, and let's start heading on over. Fantastic. Just trying to deal with our roll a bit here. And we've picked up a little bit of heading drift, likely because of the roll. Okay. So we're just pushing this right on over to the horizon here. I'm keeping an eye on our apoapsis height. Actually, we need to be back at prograde. We're being a little too aggressive with this. Our apoapsis height isn't high enough to be at this position in our gravity turn. So we need to push this up to about at least 50 kilometers here, and that'll be fine. So we're going to stick here at prograde until we get to about 50 kilometers. Then we're going to head to the horizon, which is about now. So that'll be fine. We just needed that little bit extra vertical speed. Cool. So now we're holding attitude here. And we're definitely getting a lot of speed here. No doubt about that. We're still kind of low for where we are. Good thing we have the fairing. That's all I have to say about that. Okay, how long do we have left in our burn here? 7 seconds. We're at about 100 kilometers here. This seems fine. We can just burn this out. And there we go. So we can get ourselves a small amount of separation. Perfect. And let's just hop on over to prograde for right now. We are losing some altitude due to drag, but this is fine. We're going to add a maneuver here and just get ourselves circularized. Cool. It's going to be a relatively high orbit, which is actually kind of useful for going to the moon. That's completely fine. So 242.5 meters per second to circularize. Sounds good. We're going to wait until these heating effects go away to ditch our fairing, which is pretty much now. Beautiful. Get out of here, fairing. So now, of course, we need to slowly try to turn our way over to the maneuver node, which is going to be interesting. We're still in the atmosphere right now, and so this is going to be quite a turn that we need to do here. But we're actually doing really well. I'm surprised how well this turn went. Okay, now we're going to overshoot because it exceeded my expectations. I'm trying to stop it. Okay, we're now in space. So we're going to freeze physics now that we can. We couldn't freeze physics before we were in space, but we can bring this right on back. And we'll warp forward about now. Cool. So up we go. We should probably check into our advanced orbital info, which we can do now. 1.5 degree inclination? Yeah. It's not great, but that's because of that rolling. It's fine. We should be on stability assist here. We've got about 30 seconds until our circularization burn. 20, 10, and 3, 2, 1, 0, mark. So let's get circularized. Then we'll fix our inclination. Right, we did want to turn off the gimbaling in this engine. I did forget to do that previously. So we can lock that gimbal to make this a little bit more stable. And really, we should just be locked to prograde right now. Okay. Just keeping an eye on our apoapsis here. This is good enough. Phenomenal. So now we'll set the moon as our target. There we go. And at this ascending node over here, we'll do our inclination change as per usual. Not this direction, this direction. There we go. That's actually a really solid inclination change there. And we're going to head on over to that node. Somewhere about... That's not quite where I wanted it to be, but we were going to overshoot, so I'll freeze the physics, and we'll get about there. Cool. So we'll get this inclination change done shortly. 1.5 degrees right now. About 1 minute until our burn here. 40 seconds, 30, 20, 10, and 3, 2, 1, 0, mark. Cool, and we can just watch our inclination here. This is a number that really matters. 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. That'll do. Perfect. So 0.0 degrees, and now we can head out to the moon sometime around here-ish. Feels about right. Maybe a little later than that? Yeah, I think a little later than that. And actually, it's kind of a decent return trajectory. But we're not going to be targeting that. What we're going to be targeting here is our normal target orbit of 115 kilometers, because we don't yet know that there's a problem with the service module. So we're just going to dial that in to about here, and this return trajectory is not ideal, that's for sure. We'll have to dial that in once we get over here. So this burn is absolutely fine, and we're going to push our way on through here. That burn is going to be in about 35 minutes, and let's just get rotated over to be somewhere around here-ish. It's close enough. We'll have to reorient anyway. So this will be fine. I'm still kind of frustrated with myself for forgetting to get these cargo storage units set up, but we're in a better position for it now. So I guess that's fine. 8 minutes. And we're going to be heading off to the moon in about 1 minute here. Cool. Warping forward a little further, 40 seconds, 30, 20, 10, and 3, 2, 1, 0, mark. Cool. That's, of course, going to be a pretty lengthy burn, so we'll just physics warp on through. Over a 2-minute burn for this one, as per usual for this stage. Excellent. And we can just be burning prograde. This is a pure prograde burn, right? Our inclination changed slightly, but that's just due to being slightly off here. It doesn't matter. We're going to be close enough. So about another 10 seconds on this burn. Cool. Okay, slowing it on down here. And just dialing that right on in to be about there. Perfect. That's basically where we want it to be. Now, here is approximately where the service module fails. So, we're going to warp on forward. It's probably not exactly here. This is approximate. We're going to warp on forward. And we're going to jettison this, and that is when we will discover that the service module has failed. They did not EVA to investigate or anything. They didn't learn what the actual failure was until they jettisoned the service module, which is mildly exciting. So we're going to go on to stability assist here. We're going to do this. And the service module here is, of course, failed. So we are going to shut down this engine. This engine is non-functional at this moment. So that's great. With this engine non-functional, of course, that means that technically, based on the rules of Kerbal Space Program, we could still do this mission. Technically. But we're not going to. We're not going to land. We're going to actually abort the way that they did in reality. So this is where we've discovered the service module failure and reported it back to mission control. And at this juncture, what ended up happening was they made the call to abort the mission, and we're, of course, not going to do anything with this maneuver node, I should say. They made the call to abort the mission, and at this point, they used the Terrier. They didn't, of course, have a Terrier. They used the engine on the lunar module to get themselves back into a position where the command module would be able to return them to Earth safely. So that's what we're going to do here. We're going to have Jeb hop on over. So he's going to transfer over to the lunar module. Only Jeb is going to go. So Jeb goes over to the lunar excursion module. That's fantastic. And once there, we're going to control from the lunar module. We're going to activate this engine here. This engine is out of commission. More specifically, they didn't try it. It was deemed too risky to try. So I want to see what exactly would happen if we did a prograde burn here. What would that look like? Actually, that's pretty good. So that brings us down to 250 kilometers. Yeah, that's better than I expected it to go, to be honest. So we want to bring this down to somewhere around... I'm going to bring it to just like 70 kilometers here, I think. Well, no, we should bring it a little lower. We should bring this down to 40. We don't necessarily know how successful we're going to be at dropping this apoapsis. So we're going to do something kind of like this, and we're going to loop around the moon and kind of slingshot the moon to bring ourselves back to Kerbal, is the idea here. So that's going to be 168 meters per second, and of course, we can easily do that. So we're going to get in position here. They did not jettison the service module until they were preparing for re-entry, I believe. I'm double checking that. Correct. The service module was jettisoned after they started returning. Spacecraft required a correction because it was drifting off course. Yes, yes, yes. They used the line between night and day on Earth to guide them. Fantastic. So yeah. Excellent. Okay, we're going to get lined up for this burn here. The burn is going to be in about 4 hours, so we will go out to the moon. Oh, we forgot to include the magnetometer. That's okay. This is a failure anyway, right? So we were unlikely to get any good science out of it. We'll add the magnetometer after this. We definitely want to have a magnetometer on this thing. No doubt about that. That should be attached somewhere up here. Probably on this side to try to offset the weight on here. That'd probably be for the best. So here we go, loading into the moon's sphere of influence. Excellent. And we're going to be commencing our slingshot burn here in just a moment. This is going to be a pure prograde burn, and 40 seconds, 30, 20, 10, and 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, mark. Okay, so we are headed back to Kerbal using the lunar module to push our command module. Excellent. And we're, of course, using up this fuel. Still another 40 seconds in this burn. Okay, this thing is not designed for this. But it is successful. So that's absolutely great. We've got about 10 seconds left on the burn. 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. That's probably good enough. We can fine-tune this on the way in with a radial retrograde, and that's exactly what we're going to do. So we're going to do a relatively high radial retrograde here. We want lots of time after we head into the atmosphere, or rather after this burn, before we head into this atmosphere. We want lots and lots of time. So we're going to do whatever we can for a radial retrograde burn around here-ish, targeting a relatively low orbital number here. Okay, so this is going to be 1,000 meters per second. We should be able to do that using our lander module. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to pin these guys open. I'm going to pin this guy open. And we're going to start moving some fuel out of here just to make sure that we have sufficient fuel in this stage. Cool. We should also be aligning for this burn, which we'll do. Somewhere around here-ish. And let's warp. So in we come back into the Kerbal sphere of influence, and we're going to start dropping on down. There goes the moon. Goodbye, moon. Cool. We're going to be coming in relatively fast here. So we definitely need to commence this burn, like I said, a little higher than we normally would. 40 seconds, 30, 20, 10, and 4, 3, 2, 1, 0, mark. Okay, burn has been commenced. This is going to be about a 4-minute burn, to be clear. So that's all good. We're relatively high here. It should be plenty of time before we hit the atmosphere. We definitely want to be flowing this fuel out right now. We're only using fuel from our lander module to do this, though. Cool. So we're going to be losing all of our fuel here relatively shortly. We should definitely be physics warping right now. Okay. There we go. There's all of this fuel gone. Now I'm going to pin open our lunar module, and we're going to transfer out that liquid fuel and oxidizer. There we go. And now this is all we have left. So we'll see where we're at once we've exhausted all of the fuel on our lunar lander. But this fuel is unusable for us at this juncture. It is deemed too risky to use. It looks like we're going to get most of the way through this burn. I want to see that periapsis really start to drop here. It's definitely not dropping. We're going to hop over to retrograde, and we're going to drop it here. Okay. I'm going to exit the maneuver, and we're just going to lock to retrograde. We're going to drop this as much as we can. We definitely needed to drop it a bit more. That said, we can turn RCS on and drop it slightly that way as well. Okay. So, we're continuing to drop our periapsis with RCS here. I'm keeping an eye on our altitude. What are we at for monoprop here? Okay, we've got quite a lot of monoprop. Sure. I would like to drop our periapsis further. This is likely enough to bring us down in one pass. Likely. But we were a little overambitious on that radial retrograde burn, so we're just going to continue to slow ourselves down a little bit with this. But at this, once we drop below 100 kilometers, we're going to need to get Jeb swapped back over. So we're just going to do this. We did manage to get down another kilometer or two, so that is definitely good. Okay. 100 kilometers. Jeb, you gotta go. So we're going to transfer Jeb back over to here. Hello. Transfer Jeb back over to here. We're going to control from here, and we're going to turn RCS off. We're going to go around to retrograde. We need to ditch this. So the service module is out of here at this point. Now we need to ditch the lunar module, which will burn up on re-entry. We'll undock that. And there we go. We're now ready for re-entry here. Cool. So now the question is, are we going slowly enough? Well, we're going slowly enough to survive. Are we going slowly enough to not come back up? That's the question. We're about 2 minutes to periapsis here, so we'll find out. We're definitely seeing our periapsis height dropping. That's great. And yeah, there's the lunar module here. It should... We're definitely getting further away from it right now. Interesting. I would have expected that the lunar module would shoot ahead of us here. But apparently that's not the case. Okay. Time to periapsis is going up. So it looks like we're absolutely solid here. Wonderful. This is the successful failure. Fantastic. So we can see our periapsis height is now negative, and yep, we're definitely coming back in. We're now below orbital velocity as well. This is all looking good. It definitely would have been a little faster to bring this back if we had had a little bit more fuel there in the lunar module, but I mean, there's a reason the lunar module has the amount of fuel it does, right? It has the amount of fuel it needs. So that's great. And again, even without using the service module fuel or the engine without using the fuel module engine, but if we were allowed to use the fuel module, or rather the service module fuel, we would have been able to perform our mission as originally planned. I mean, this is how the mission was planned to go out from our perspective. But from the Apollo 13 perspective, we would have been able to do that. But that's not really capabilities that existed in reality. That's kind of KSP-ish things. So we're going to get our drogues out, and we're also going to fire the mains here shortly. And there we go. We can now resume our warping. SAS does not need to be on anymore. The parachutes will hold us roughly retrograde. And we've got ourselves a nice night splashdown. Phenomenal. So that's all great. No issue whatsoever here. That is a successful failure of Apollo 13. Let me get that marked off on the list. There we go. And we might as well get our payment for it too, because technically the failure was the mission here. So we grab our payment for that. Phenomenal. And downward we drift. Less than a kilometer to go until splashdown. Everything is looking great here. So next up is, of course, going to be Apollos 14 and 15, which are going to be broadly similar to Apollo 12, except that we're actually going to have our experiments to bring along. So that'll be good. We'll get some good science out of that. And then Apollos 16 and 17, we'll have to figure out how to pack a rover into this thing as well. And land that on our current fuel levels, which is going to be kind of spicy. We'll recover this. Everyone breathes a sigh of relief now that Apollo 13 is over. And all of the other Apollo missions just go off without a hitch. So that's absolutely great. We're going to have 4 additional Apollo missions after this. And then we'll be moving on to something. Like I said before, I'm thinking about moving Soyuz into, like, Salyut 1 for the first space station, but we'll see. We'll see. We probably didn't get any science from that, realistically, so it is probably just going to be the end there. We got 12 science from a flyby of the moon. Oh, okay, that's something anyway. Definitely not great, but it's fine. All according to plan there. You can leave your offerings to the engagement gods in the form of likes, comments, subscribes, and bell ringings, and next episode, we're back to our moon landings. And that's going to be absolutely great. And a very special thank you to all of the channel members for making this video possible, including ALS Gamer, Shadow Wolf, Andy McGar, Spartan News, Nick Smarty, Dimitri H, Punching the Microphone, Soccerman12UK, Kentogan, and all the rest. And of course, you. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to support the channel, you can click the join button down below the video. And as always, I will see you all next time.